Well, hello, everybody. Hello, friends. Welcome to this special celebration of the launch of a very important book by Dr. Glen Martin, who is with us. The book is called Human Dignity and World Order. And I'm honored and privileged to be the host for this event and this celebration. My name is Byron Belitzos, and I work with Glen and the whole team at ECI and WCPA. We're going to talk about, why don't you hold up the book, Glenn, so folks can see what this looks like.
Yeah, so cover is shown on Amazon, and so on, but there it is, Human Dignity and World Order, the Holistic Foundations of Global Democracy.
Show them how thick it is.
It's 414 pages.
It's a good read, folks, I'm telling you.
And they're selling it for $32.99 on Amazon.
And there's an ebook for $31.
Yeah.
So discounted at $1 for the ebook.
That's right.
You may have noticed on the back jacket of this book are a large number of endorsements. Glen has a large following worldwide. Glen has written a number of books, 14 books, I think it is, and this is his most recent. And I'm going to kind of open things up by a little bio. A lot of you know Glen well, but a lot of folks are going to be looking at this that don't know Glen's work. So just by way of introduction to Dr. Glen Martin, he's been active since the 60s in the anti-war movement as a conscientious objector way back then. He has been in the peace movement ever since, and he's active today, of course, as the president of the WCPA, which is the World Constitution and Parliament Association. And within that movement, we have an entity called the Earth Constitution Institute. And that is where you'll be hearing more about the Earth Constitution Institute, or ECI. Since over 20 years, Glen has been a leader of WCPA and has convened a number of events, seminars throughout the world, really on every continent, to promote the notions that you're going to hear today to the world citizenry, to develop global citizenship and a constituency for a world federal government. Glen is also a regular contributor of editorials of all kinds, political editorials, philosophical pieces to newspapers and newsletters, online venues of various kinds. And he's also received several international awards for his work toward world peace, including the 2007 World Peace Award from the Office of the World Peace Envoy of Bangkok, Thailand, and a number of other awards, including the GUSI Gusi International Peace Prize in Manila, Philippines in 2013. It's a very significant prize. Glen lives in Radford, Virginia with his wife, Phyllis, and Phyllis Turk. And his website, by the way, his personal website is extensive and something I highly recommend you look at in order to understand Glen if you're new to his work. It's called oneworldrenaissance.org, I think. And just by way of introduction to the book, I'd like to kind of orient you to some of the concepts with a few lines, a few sentences about the book. So the book is called Human Dignity and World Order, Holistic Foundations of Global Democracy, and it's published by the Hamilton imprint of Rowman and Littlefield, a very significant academic publisher. And it is now available online at all venues. He examines the opening. He starts by really basing the whole book on the Declaration of Human Rights of 1948. And this is the basis really for a new understanding of, as he puts it, the recognition of the inherent dignity of equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family, is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. That's not how Glenn puts it. That's how the Declaration puts it. Let me read that again. It's the recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family. And this is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. And as Glenn writes, unfortunately, our world system, composed of global capitalism, interfaced with a collection of militarized sovereign nation states, is based on wealth, power, greed, violence, and conflict. It is not based on human dignity. There is no democratically enforceable law over the nations. The consequences of this lawlessness is that each nation feels it necessary to militarize. So we have militarized sovereign nation states. We live in a globalized world where capitalism and nation state militarism have been extended worldwide. In other words, we have globalized economics and war, but we do not have globalized world democracy. So the book shows that the Constitution for the Federation of Earth is the way, a way to universalize democracy, just like we've universalized or globalized economics and war. So with that, I'd like to welcome you, Dr. Glen Martin, and congratulate you on the launch of a very significant book, which we're going to hear about. I wanted to, per our discussion of this important book, important for me personally, I picked out what I thought were highlights for me. And for me, I think that there's something new that I'm not previously aware of in your work, is something you call the utopian imagination, something having to do with us as temporal beings oriented toward the future, and what is on a horizon in terms of the values that we would want to establish in our life and in the collective life. And maybe we could start with that as a way into your book, if you'd like.
Okay. You want me to make a few comments on that, I
Just
guess?
on that as maybe a vehicle to get into the
Yeah.
environment.
There's a considerable literature on human futurity, the future-oriented nature of human life. Henri Bergson did work on that. One of the pioneers in that area was Soren Kierkegaard, and there's a very famous book called Being and Time by Martin Heidegger that came out in 1927 that articulates that at great length. The idea that human beings are fundamentally temporalized human creatures, which means that we usually think of time as somehow just a framework within which we live our lives. So there's the past and the present, and we're going to this future on this kind of external time and framework. And these writers argue, and I think correctly, that this is not the case, that human beings are living movements of time, living movements of temporality. And we are always thinking in terms of the past, memory. We have memories of the past. We always live in a dynamic present in which we synthesize those memories and project them toward a future. We anticipate the future of tomorrow, the future of next week, the future of next year, and so on, the future of our children and grandchildren, of humanity. And it's this temporal nature of our human situation that if one investigates how it operates, it always thinks in terms of a future that's better than the past. We think, oh, this is unjust, we need justice. This is unsustainable, we need sustainability. This is not a good thing, we need to get it back. So there is a structure in our very existence which wants the future to be better than the past.
Yes.
And there's a great deal of literature on this idea of utopian imagination too. One of the famous ones is Ernst Bloch, the neo-Marxist writer who wrote The Principle of Hope. Such writers say that this future gives our very being. You and I may say, oh, I'm the most practical, I'm the most pragmatic person in the world, but our very structure of our being has this utopian structure to it, so that we think it always could be better. We could end war. We could have a world of peace and dignity and freedom and so on. And that the book emphasizes this in a number of ways, in a number of chapters, because we human beings really have to grasp that we have this utopian possibility. You know, we're facing the possible terminus of the whole human project through nuclear war, or the collapse of the global environment, which is happening as we speak. And if we can truly grasp and understand our utopian possibility, which the book argues and tries to illuminate for us, we have the ability, intrinsic to our common human situation, to transform this broken and fragmented world to one that really encourages human flourishing and human survival on the planet.
Human dignity then is related to its utopian horizon in what way? Is that a way of exercising your human dignity?
Um, the first three chapters of the book talk about human dignity, what it is, and how, in what ways dignity, from say a purely materialistic point of view, it's very difficult to argue for a human dignity that's inviolable. You know, the person who's a pure materialist would say, well, why shouldn't I torture people? You know, what is this thing that somehow they're supposed to be inviolable? You're not supposed to torture them and so on. So it goes into the our human subjectivity, and the literature, very large literature of why there's something deeper than the material world, deeper than just being an animal, that makes human beings distinct, cosmically distinct from the other animals that we find in the evolutionary process. Cosmically, there's something about us that it is larger than material, that is larger than animality, that is deep. And of course the religions have always talked about this, but I argue that what we need to do is see this principle, see what we really are as human beings, as we have evolved out of this cosmos, and get rid of religious dogmas about this, and just see it for ourselves, see that we have this special value, this intrinsic value. Part of that value has to do with our utopian capacity. Not all of it, because whether we're striving for the future or not, every human being has this immense dignity within them, this inviolability about them. But the very fact that we are gifted from the cosmos, we are gifted with this ability to envision a future that's entirely different from the past, one of justice and freedom and peace and dignity, that is also intrinsically related to this exceptional quality that makes us human, that makes us distinctively human.
So what would you say is the aspect of the world system that robs us of human dignity? I know it's a big question, but maybe you could break that down and show how the book examines the question of the violations of dignity.
Um, the world system that we're living under right now, which has two dimensions: global capitalism interfaced with militarized sovereign nation states, is totally out of date. It was evolved in the 16th and 17th century, concurrently with the rise of early modern science. And early modern science concluded that the world was mechanistic and deterministic and atomistic. It concluded that there was just matter in the world, and the human mind somehow uh, either was a different kind of substance in that matter, or that the human mind was just an illusion, and really just movements in the brain are what generate our consciousness, our self-consciousness. In either case, it could not find any space for human dignity. And the institutions that evolved, global capitalism and militarized sovereign nation states, are institutions that are products of that early modern worldview. It's fragmented, it's atomistic, it's deterministic. It excludes, that early modern worldview excludes all these dimensions which give us our real human dignity, recognized, as you pointed out, Byron, in the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It says there that dignity is the foundation of freedom, peace, and justice in the world. We do not have freedom, peace, and justice in the world because we do not have global institutions founded on dignity. And here we are in the 21st century, after 4 years of fragmentation. It's time we founded our world system on dignity itself and derived our political and economic life from that dignity. And right now, our dignity is being crushed by these out-of-date institutions. And that's the role of the Constitution for the Federation of Earth. The Constitution, as I elaborate in the book, is premised from the very beginning. All its articles are premised on human dignity, creates a world system based on dignity, a parliament and an executive and a judiciary, all these institutions based on human dignity first. And this is the key to transforming our broken world system. Right? And I think it's the key to our survival and flourishing on planet Earth as well.
Glenn, when people talk about human rights, and even within the world system, there's a lot of talk about human rights and protection of human dignity. But in terms of rights, is that a subset of human dignity, or is that
Yeah.
the same concept as human dignity?
There's a lot of thinkers. These concepts, of course, are controversial, as everything in philosophy is. But there's a lot of thinkers, I think, correctly say that our concept of human rights. Why should human rights be inalienable? Why can't they be taken away? John Locke said this, and following him, Thomas Jefferson said this about in the Declaration of Independence. They're inalienable. They can't be taken away. Why not? Because there's something about us that we call our dignity that means that we have to be treated with these rights. We have to have freedom of speech. We have to have habeas corpus. We have to have prohibitions against government torturing us or arresting us arbitrarily and so on. Those rights derive from the fact that there's something special about human beings. And so the UN Declaration of 1948 is very good in that it starts out with the premise of dignity, and then gives us 30 different rights that derive from that dignity. That's you could derive slightly different list from that, but fundamentally that's the correct way to do it. The only thing is, the nations of the world ignore that UN Declaration of Human Rights. The United States says it's socialist because it's, in Article 25, it says everybody should have remuneration or payment sufficient for himself and his family. Right? That's socialist because it means everybody has the right to eat and so on. And so nations, they're engaged in military struggles, ideological struggles around the world, power struggles, and under the UN system, which is the world system institutionalized in the UN, every nation, every government is supposed to be responsible for protecting the human rights of its citizens, not other nations' rights,
Right.
right? But only the rights of its citizens. So other nations may violate the rights of their citizens, but there's no authority, there's no law in the world that that uh, that does not allow that to happen. So we live in a world where human rights are violated everywhere, even where those governments claim to be democracies and they say, "Oh, we're protecting the rights of our citizens." They don't, because in a militarized world, they have to have all kinds of secrecy. They have to have security concerns. They have to spy on their own citizens. It's a total mess as far as human rights are concerned. And therefore, as far as human dignity is concerned, it's a mess. And all this is reversed by the Constitution for the Federation of Earth, which starts out in Article 1 saying, the purpose of this document and this system, this Constitution, is protection of universal human rights for everyone on the planet, as well as ending war and protecting the environment and so on. That's what needs to happen if we're going to have a future on this planet.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm going to ask you to walk us through the book, to show us what's in the book, but also a couple of questions to go with that. How is it different from your previous work? And secondly, why this book now? Why this particular theme now, in contrast with what you've been saying in the past?
My previous work, Byron, in terms of a critical social theory, a theory of revolutionary transformation, goes back to my 2005 book called Millennium Dawn: The Philosophy of Planetary Crisis and Human Liberation. And there in that book, I put together theories of human growth, which I still am using, only in a more developed way today. I put together critical social theory coming from the Marxist tradition. I have a chapter on Karl Marx and so on. And I put together the world crisis connected with this early modern system that has not been changed, the system of global capitalism and militarized sovereign nation states. So these themes I've been thinking about since that time. It's 20 years, and I've developed various aspects of those themes in a more particular way in my subsequent books. I've studied philosophy of law, because what the Earth Constitution is about is world law, and I showed the links in some of my, like, for instance, Ascent to Freedom, my 2008 book. I developed a history of Western thought with regard to law, and show how the philosophy of law itself points toward a human liberation and a constitution for the earth. So one of the things about this book that is unique and makes it so important to come out at this time is the real understanding that I've come to, and that the book embodies, that of how severely and how fundamentally the world system violates our human dignity. Right? The world system is in conflict with the most fundamental aspects of what it means to be a human being. It violates us in every dimension. and if we're going to survive on this planet and we're going to have a decent world that we all dream about of justice and peace and freedom and so on, we've got to radically and fundamentally emphasize the need for a dignity system. And it's got to happen right away. And as you know, I've been studying and promoting the Earth Constitution for all these years as well, going back to 1995 when I first discovered the Earth Constitution. And it's dawned on me also in what ways the Earth Constitution is premised in every single one of its articles on human dignity. And therefore, what this book represents is a realization, some in my own intellectual and moral and spiritual growth, a realization of the significance of human dignity and why it's so fundamentally necessary for us to transform the world to be based on that dignity.
Thank you. Very well said, of course. I think one of the things that I'm seeing is a shift from a human rights language to a deeper philosophic consideration of the premise underlying human rights, that being human dignity. And it's interesting you point out that was, of course, the premise of the Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. And it's not necessarily the premise of the UN Charter,
No,
right? So they had to have the separate document
yeah.
that stands by itself, and nobody was really applying that premise of human dignity to the issue of governance in the way that you're doing. I think we say that's what's unique about the book. It's giving a deeper structure, a philosophic structure to this very practical issue of global democracy. And I wonder if you could comment on that and also this issue of fragmentation again, just to bring that home a little bit more, because it strikes me that the reason people can't get to the issue of dignity is their consciousness is fragmented. They just see pieces of things, parts of things, and they may have single issues that they're protesting about, but they're not connecting enough of the dots to get to human dignity. Something to that effect. Did you have comments on that?
The book uses the theorists of human intellectual and moral growth that is promoted by people like Ken Wilber and Lawrence Kohlberg and Jürgen Habermas, Carol Gilligan, in which we start out as young people normally, as we grow through teenage years into young adulthood and so on, we tend to be egoistic, these theorists say. We tend to think of everything in terms of I and me, and myself, my career, my friends, my family, and so on. And as we become more socialized and integrated into society, as we grow and develop normally, we tend to become ethnocentric. That is, we see, I travel a lot around the world. I've been in many of the countries of the world, and everywhere people love their countries. Everywhere people love their cultures and their languages and so on. And there's nothing wrong with this, of course. It's a beautiful thing to see, but they go concomitant with this love of one's country and one's culture and one's background and one's language is on the ethnocentric level is the idea that somehow my culture and my language and my nation are correct, are superior. And what they do in these other nations is somehow less insightful, less profound, less culturally, and so on. And this requires further growth. This is not true, right? Human civilization is a wonderful and beautiful thing that encompasses the world. And I've studied as well as been in cultures all over the world, from Japan to Latin America and many in Asia. And there's we need to move to a world-centric understanding, which appreciates the vast diversity of human beings and so on. And this is where fragmentation turns into holism, right? As we grow from ethnocentric, which is fragmented, which says my culture and language and nation are separate and different and better, we have to grow into a world-centric vision in which we understand that human beings are one. We're one civilization. It's, great thinkers like Rabindranath Tagore in India argued this, way back in the late 19th century. They were arguing this. Civilization is one. It's beautiful. It needs to be integrated. It needs to become a world civilization. And with, of course, the vast capacities for now translating languages and people, scholars, comparative religion and comparative culture and so on, the world is moving in that direction. We're seeing the holism of our human civilization and our human evolution. But this goes even further in these thinkers about human development to the level of a cosmic consciousness. Beyond a world-centric consciousness, thinkers can move to an awareness of human beings in our place within the cosmic evolution of 13.7 billion years. And there are many who write about this and elaborate it and so on. And here, the holism becomes deeper than world-centric holism. It makes one's own sense of life, one's own subjectivity, a living representation of that holism of the cosmos. And this is the same holism that 20th century science has really uncovered. Quantum physics and relativity physics, they've discovered the integral holism. Everything is related to everything else in the entire cosmos. And we can be directly conscious of that. And and I argue that a kind of conscious evolution is necessary, and that this kind of conscious evolution to move us from ethnocentric to world-centric to cosmocentric conscious levels of consciousness, this kind of conscious evolution is facilitated by ratifying the Earth Constitution. It is a document of conscious evolution. It helps people move toward a deeper and a wonderful, a joyful realization of our role in the cosmos and what we are as human beings.
Fantastic. I think that I've never heard you say it that way, that the Earth Constitution is an instrument in a way for consciousness itself to come into the realization of our cosmic existence, and that our human dignity is based on the fact that we're part of a universe which is even bigger than the planet itself. And so it's hard for folks to grasp that in the current fragmented system. So how do we, so let's get to the practical side of things. And I think after this question, I'm going to open it up for anybody to ask questions. And those of you who want to ask questions, you have to please raise your hand, because I can't see everybody easily, and unmute yourself before you ask your question. But I want to get more to the practical. Is there a practical sense in which the world system makes it almost impossible for a person to move to a world-centric and a more of a cosmic view? Is there actually like a block or obstruction to that?
The book writes about that in chapters in chapters 4 and 5. It goes into the the world system, it calls it the pathological world system of capitalism, the pathological world system of nation states, and the two are integrated in our world system as a whole. So it articulates why it's so difficult. Under capitalism, it's very simple, really. If you take a course in, go to the university where I was teaching and take a course in capitalism, take a course in marketing, take a course in investment or whatever, you'll see that it's simply a matter of numbers, right? You invest in so much in a certain productive activity. You count among your costs labor and materials and overhead and so on. You calculate externalities like having to get rid of waste and those kind of things. And then you also get a certain percentage of return on your investment. All numbers, no mention of human dignity.
Yeah, right.
Right? Nothing. It's a mechanism, right? And the mechanism requires endless growth. You have to, if you want to get your return on your investment, you have to grow. You have to grow your business. And the same with nations, with GDP, they're talking about always growing. And the environmentalists, as we all know, say you can't have infinite growth on a finite planet. Growth is not, economic growth is not a way to go. We need moral and spiritual and civilizational growth, sure, but not. But and it's the same with nations, right? Nation states, if you look at their relationship, they may use the rhetoric of human rights. They're all hypocrites, every single one of them, and they talk about, oh, you're violating the rights and you're violating these rights and so on. But they really operate out of power relationships, power and pragmatic and Machiavellian relationships, jockeying for markets and jockeying for position and alliances and so on. They're not operating out of human dignity. So pragmatically, the Constitution is this amazing document because in Article 17, 18, and 19, it outlines things that people can do here and now. They don't have to wait until somehow it's ratified by the people and nations of Earth. We can organize now. We can make changes now, developing world electoral districts so that we're making possible planetary voting by world citizens. Our website at earthconstitution.world has a place for people to sign up as part of our project for doing that and so on. So things can be done practically, right? And what the book argues is that the very process by which we work to develop an alternative world based on human dignity within the Earth Constitution, that itself transforms our consciousness, and it transforms the consciousness of the people with whom we are dealing as well. So there's a reciprocity between praxis and spiritual and political and economic evolution, right? We do the praxis, and in our level of understanding increases, our level of holism increases, and so on. So it's that process that the book emphasizes in many of its chapters, saying that it's absolutely essential that we engage in that process if we want to overcome the current fragmented world system and have a world system that's going to not only survive but be based on human flourishing.
Okay, you guys, you got to get the book in order to flesh this out in your own thinking. So now we're going to open this up to Q&A with Preference to those who raise their hand in a clear way so we can see that, and I will call on you. And I think we've got one already, and don't forget to unmute yourself, Roger, when you ask your question. Go ahead, Roger, please.
Glenn, I struggle with this issue of some of these psychopaths running countries and all this destruction and how to stop it. And the Earth Constitution emphasizes nonviolent solutions. I'm wondering about if some of these psychopathic leaders need more than if do they need some kind of force? I mean, do we need a military force? Does the Earth Federation need a military force to stop some of these people? Or what's your thinking on that? How should we proceed?
I don't think a military force is going to work. In certain situations, we know historically, a violent revolution has resulted in change to a new governmental system, the Cuban Revolution and so on in 1959 to 61. But the new system in Myanmar say that if that military dictatorship is overthrown, there'll be a new government. It may be slightly better for the people of Myanmar, but it's within a world system which prostitutes it, right? We were back in Cuba. I've been in Cuba 7 times. I was back there just a year ago, and even though they got rid of a dictator and put in a socialist government that had great intentions, it's still a terrible place. And the reason why is it's part of a world system that does not allow it to flourish. We have to be working, people within all countries have to be working, but we have to be working in a holistic way to lay the groundwork for a holistic transformation. So, local violence, I don't think is a key. What we really need is to be thinking in terms of a global transformation of our consciousness, and what makes it so practical and so valuable is that the Earth Constitution is a model for this and is a blueprint for this. So what we need to be doing everywhere is elaborating world electoral districts and working on an Article 109 review conference that replaces the UN Charter with the Earth Constitution, and promoting the idea of the Constitution and dignity everywhere, and having people operate from those premises. I really don't see where a military force would do any good in terms of the ultimate goal.
Follow-up question on that. Anybody want to pick that up? I'm going to just add something, which is, of course, we have an enforcement mechanism in the Earth Constitution where those who are breaking laws can be arrested. So it's individual accountability, and there is force in the sense that they can be arrested. And obviously we know that, but I just want to point that out. So who was next? I think Manuel was
Yeah,
that?
just let me mention that yeah, I was not saying we don't need law enforcement, right? And the Earth Constitution creates civilian police. And since Article 19 of the Earth Constitution allows us to develop provisional world government with provisional world institutions, there's really no reason why, if we are successful and continue to expand rapidly, that we could not have civilian world police. Right, it's different than a military force that's going to bomb someone. Right, the police, as the Earth Constitution gets recognized around the world as having authority and so on, the civilian world police could arrest someone like Netanyahu or Joe Biden, right, who are both committing, and of course the International Criminal Court is a very weak and pale preliminary to that kind of possibility. It has no enforcement, but there's a lot of people thinking in those terms that we need individual accountability, and the civilian world police give that kind of accountability.
Manuel, I think you were next. If you're unmuted.
Thank you. Glenn, it's great listening to you and very much hope to get into your book. My question is the following. Human dignity might mean different things for different people and for societies on Earth, and probably depends on the degree of consciousness. On a scale of values, can you pick up 3 essential characteristics that are consubstantial to human dignity and that all of us, everyone, must embrace?
That's a very good question, Manuel, and very difficult. It's in the beginning of the book, I look at various literature on dignity, and as you say, there are different ideas of what it constitutes and so on. There are some people that say it's just a nonsense idea and so on. What I do in chapter 3 is try to evoke in the people's minds, reading it, using literature of a number of great thinkers, the idea of, it uses the idea of infinity, right? As you know, this idea was promoted by such people as Hegel, who thought it was fundamental human consciousness, and 20th century philosopher Errol Harris uses this idea. Manuel Levinas, who wrote the book Totality and Infinity, says that we can recognize infinity in the human face, and so I try to evoke and talk about a dimension of our common humanity that transcends limitation and finitude and fragmentation, right? And I do it through the concept of infinity, trying to get people to see that there's something incredibly special about being a human being, that you can't really identify, this value or that value and so on, but it can be symbolized in the concept of infinity, and the capacity infinity operates in lots of ways that I go into in chapter 3. Our capacity, in, for example, in our capacity for self-transcendence. Each one of us is a self-conscious being, and the very fact of our self-consciousness shows that we are aware of some principle that transcends whatever we're looking at in our self-conscious lives, and so that's what the book tries to do. It tries to invoke a sense that there's an infinity about all of us, about human beings. Levinas puts it this way. He says, a human being is larger. We contain more than it is possible to contain, right? Every human being contains a dimension that is more than it is possible to contain. And that's what that realization, that sense, is what we need to, I think, come upon with respect to human beings.
So we have about 10 minutes left, and I would especially invite questions of a practical nature as to what do we do now in the light of Glen's work and what Glen's been saying. If somebody here needs to mute because we can hear a background. Somebody's please mute. Everybody who's not speaking should be muted. Thank you. So who's
Jackie,
next?
did you have a question?
Yes, Rich? Jackie? Check. Go ahead, unmute, please.
That was the unmuted.
Go ahead.
Congratulations on your book, Glenn.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
It's cutting in and out, but why don't you state it quickly, briefly?
Go plus.
Yeah, I have an unstable connection, so I'll do the best I can. Can't hear me?
You hear you now. Yeah.
Valuable tool
Rich, we
at your
lost you there.
disposal that I haven't seen you make reference to yet.
So what has he not made reference to? It cut out.
The overview effect, seeing Earth from space, the shift in consciousness.
Edgar Mitchell's view of the overview effect, I think he's alluding to. Maybe that could give you a new way to talk about human beings.
We are earthlings. We are earthlings.
We are earthlings. Yeah, I think that's implicit in the kind of cosmic consciousness that I was talking about earlier. Early on in my readings years ago, I read people like A.R. Oraj, who talks about an overview, looking at the world from space, and to a certain extent, Buckminster Fuller also tries to adopt that kind of perspective, which I think is excellent. We need to be looking at our human life as something that is a product of the cosmic movement. Brian Schwimm, who is a contemporary articulator of physics and so on, also emphasizes this, and he says that, if we look at our world from a cosmic point of view, then we see what is happening locally as either a perversion of the cosmic drive for harmony and integration and illumination, or an example of it. And I think this is absolutely fundamental. We cosmic consciousness, which is, it's no mysterious thing. It's just a kind of dawning on each of us as we grow, as we develop in our lives, a dawning that realizes that the entire cosmos has brought itself to consciousness in us. Sri Aurobindo puts it that way, right? That we are a cosmic phenomena. The cosmos, 13.7 billion years, has evolved, and it has created creatures who have evolved in 5.8 billion years on the earth into self-conscious beings, human beings. And if we really internalize that, we get to the insight that Sri Aurobindo expresses as the universal principle has brought into existence a being through whom it can realize itself. So that the cosmos come to consciousness of itself, and our task is to realize the truth of the cosmos. Our task is to realize integration and harmony and coherence and intelligibility and all these things that modern science has discovered are fundamental to the cosmos.
Thank you very much for the questions. We've run
So
out
the
of time.
suggestion is
You're cutting out, Rich. We didn't really hear that. Sorry. Anyway, we're out of time, folks, and want to thank all of you who asked questions. I wonder, Glenn, if you want to say something in closing today, particularly on the practical end of things, what folks need to do in the light of your work?
Well, what they need to do is not so much in the light of my work as in the light of the Earth Constitution, which is a work of hundreds of world citizens working together. And my work is kind of an attempt to illuminate the philosophical significance of the Constitution and why it's absolutely fundamental and how it's fundamental. But we're now, the World Constitutional Parliament Association is now planning the 16th session of the Provisional World Parliament, which will be in Pondicherry, India, even though it'll also be hybrid and people can participate worldwide, but it will be in Pondicherry, India, at the end of 2025. And we're having preliminary hybrid meetings where people can talk about this process and unite behind it and so on. The 16th session of the Provisional World Parliament is, we think, going to be a turning point, because our intention is to come out of that parliament with a permanent secretariat or provisional world government under the authority of the Earth Constitution. And therefore there will be an ongoing institution with a permanent secretariat that is promoting, helping lay the groundwork of the world electoral districts and the voting systems for the world, helping organize the ministries of the world, the provisional world executive and so on, possibly, as we mentioned before, even the provisional world police. And so we've got these practical goals that are concretely directed toward what seems to be the most effective means of trying to enable human survival and human flourishing on planet Earth. So I encourage everybody to find out about that, to go to our websites and where this will all be announced, and people will be able to register and to get involved with this. The book provides philosophical founding, philosophical grounding for this kind of praxis, but the praxis is there in the Earth Constitution. It's not, Earth Constitution, not a 414-page book like this is. It's only 30 pages, and it's dynamite. This is what we must be emphasizing.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you very much. I see Francisco has shown up. Good to see you there, and we welcome you. And thank you, everybody, for coming. And this recording will be circulated. Please forward it to your colleagues and friends. And I think on that note, we have had a good tour de force review of Glenn's book. Please get a copy of the book or the ebook, and let's go forward in our work for a new world order based on human dignity. Thanks, everybody.